Now he starts talking about school. School's bad. School's real bad for him. And even though he went to a boarding school, and it was presumably quite nice, you'd think it would be if they're educating the prince, he was not prepared when he got to Eton, by any stretch of the imagination. It would have seemed that he spent most of his time at school trying to outfox Pat, figuring out where the table of sweets were so he could cram a whole sleeve of Starburst into his mouth at once, and trying to get out of writing letters to his family. Those are the 3 points that he continually hits in this book about what he did back at Ludgrove. I don't know what sort of education he received at Ludgrove, but whatever it was not adequate. And perhaps it was, I mean, we know he didn't really want to do any of the schoolwork that was set in front of him. We know he resented anyone who asked him to do anything. So maybe they did try to prepare him, but he was out to lunch. And he says that the reason he didn't do well at school is that he could not memorize anything because he was trying to avoid his memory all the time. And he says that he was always trying to avoid quiet time because in the quiet was when the memories would come about his mother. And the more poignant memories and the sweeter the memory, the harder it was for him to endure. Now, I have sympathy for that. I mean, I can only imagine how frightening the silence would be if you were trying to avoid the memories of your mother. And also, he's continually grappling with the fact that she's actually dead. And he has not, to this point, admitted to himself that she is. He's now 14 in this section of the story, and he's still describing her as disappeared. So I could imagine sitting by yourself in the silence trying to study would throw open the doors for all sorts of unwelcome thoughts. Anyway, he says that since he couldn't memorize and school really is just a long series of memorizations, that no wonder he didn't do well. And he says that one of the other trials at Eton was that William would have nothing to do with him. And William had apparently said, look, Eton has been a haven for me. I haven't had you around all the time for the last 2 years, and I'd like to keep it that way. So I'm gonna go about my business, and you pretend like you don't even know me. Okay, I have never said anything like that to any of my siblings, and I can't imagine, especially in a situation in which we were away from home and we didn't have our parents, that I wouldn't at least sort of look out for my younger siblings. I'm the oldest of 5, and I cannot think of one of my siblings in which I would say, you pretend like you don't even know me. Stay away from me. Okay, I can't imagine saying that. But it seems like there are a lot of siblings I've heard who don't want to associate with their siblings at school. They want to have their own separate identity. They don't want to have to share their identity with a sibling. Okay, well, that's not beyond the pale, okay? So for Harry to act like, how dare he? I mean, where does it even come off? What kind of evilness is that? Well, that's just the immaturity of siblings. He just doesn't want to be his brother's keeper. And that wouldn't be my response, but I don't think that is so crazy that it cannot be conceived of. So he's really having a hard time of it. He doesn't like anything about Eton. He especially doesn't like the uniforms, which apparently are funeral dress. Because they're supposed to be in forever mourning for the king. The founder of the school, once he died, they have adopted a funeral dress with the full-on black tailcoat, white collarless shirt, white stiff collar pinned to the shirt with a stud, pinstripe trousers, heavy black shoes, and a tie that wasn't a tie, more like a cloth folded into the white detached collar. Formal kit, they called it, but it wasn't formal, it was funeral. And so he's like, you know, can you imagine how that felt for me? I just lost my mom 2 years ago, and now they're making me dress like it's for a funeral all the time. But it's like, yeah, you and everyone else. And I can't imagine that there weren't some children in that entire school who had also lost a parent or who had also been through tragedy. Everything is always about some slight against him. You know, I couldn't get past having to put on that uniform every day. Funeral clothes is what they wear, funeral clothes. Yes, but why are you making it worse for yourself by finding these connections that are just painful? Why are you looking to hurt yourself? Which leads us to the next point, that he talks about how he played a lot of sports when he was at Eton. And he liked rugby, and he liked cricket and football and polo. And he liked them especially because, he liked rugby especially because he said, rugby let me indulge my rage. Which some had now taken to calling a red mist. Plus, I simply didn't feel pain the way other boys did, which made me scary on a pitch. No one had an answer for a boy actually seeking external pain to match his internal. That's a significantly dark passage about his mental health. Rage issues that he is trying to exercise through sports and being so aggressive on the field because he didn't feel pain but was also looking to feel pain at the same time. I mean, if that's true, and we can only believe that it is, considering how fraught his mental health has been up to this point, that's a really dark passage. And he just skims right past. I mean, like, not another comment is made. It's like, how about a little bit more on that and a little less on your dad's teddy bear? There's an idea. Maybe talk about your own problems and leave your dad out of it. And then he talks about the fact that he started to get into some trouble at Eton. Everyone was always smoking cigarettes. They like to have their tabbage, their cigarettes, these words. And he, started taking to smoking, not because he liked it or anything, but people offered it to him. So what are you gonna do? I don't know, not smoke? There's an idea. It's like, and continually throughout the rest of this section, it's, I didn't really want to, but they said to, so I did. Well, no wonder you're in the mess you are in now. When have you ever said no to anything? If somebody tells you to do something, you have an option. So smoking, he started smoking cigarettes, then he started smoking weed. He just couldn't say no to anything. I mean, when they told him to do it, he just did it. And he just wanted to be liked. And he wanted to be one of the funny guys. Well, one day he is in his dorm and they get the idea that he needs a haircut. Now, I have a feeling that his friends, knowing that he was going to be the one that would do whatever they said, may have taken advantage of that with him. I don't know how friendly these people were to him. But he says that they came to him and they said, hey, you need a haircut. Let's shave your head. And he in the moment was like, oh, well, that's kind of different, but okay. And they get up the razor and then they shave his head. And he goes and he looks in the mirror and he's horrified and he's super upset that he let it happen. And he does the one thing that he knew he was never supposed to do. He runs upstairs. They're in the same house. He runs upstairs to William and says, look what they've done to me. And William has no sympathy. He's like, well, why did you let him do that? That doesn't look good. What was that choice, Harold? And Harry's like, you would. I came to you for sympathy, and this is what I get. And so he stumbles back down the stairs. And then he was even more upset because he already felt foolish. He already knew he looked dumb. And then the papers ran a story about him and called him a skinhead. They didn't have a picture, but they had photoshopped a photo to mimic what he might look like. And he resented that. I mean, honestly, who wouldn't resent that? You're 14 years old and you look foolish and then they print a picture. Okay, I can understand being pretty annoyed. And I also understand that at the age of 14, you don't possess the ability to ignore when other people are insulting to you, especially if it's in a newspaper. I can understand feeling upset about that. But it also feels like, again, somebody at some point must have taken him aside and said, you're going to get bad press, and this is how we handle it. Who would have just fed him to the wolves like this? If anybody said anything to him about take the high road, I just don't know how much he was actually listening to that.